Hey everybody, TJ here at TalentBin. Welcome to webinar number 10, Finding Finance. Thank you so much for being here with us on your Friday. Kind of a special webinar for us for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's our 10th webinar. Pretty crazy to think we've done 10 of these and it's been a year since we started doing them. So thanks so much for being along with us on the ride. Also exciting because TalentBin is expanding. We're moving into new industries. We're currently jumping into the finance market. So that's why we definitely have an interesting audience to this webinar compared to others. Some of you are current TalentBin customers, here to learn something new about where TalentBin is going data-wise. Some of you are sales reps learning about how this product might fit for the market, and then others are potential customers that have never maybe used TalentBin or seen it even before. So I'm going to do my best to cater to each of those groups of people throughout this presentation, but please hang with us. Even if you feel like something is review for you, there's definitely something in here for each of you to get out of this. So thanks so much again for joining us. Let's dive right into the material. All right, what are we going to talk about today? As I mentioned, I'm going to do a quick background or overview of TalentBin simply for the folks that maybe haven't seen this before. This might be new to you. Never heard of TalentBin, my monster, so I'll do a little bit of talking about us and where we come from. Then I will intro the new vertical. So this is interesting for everybody. Where are we going? Why are we moving into finance? And what is that going to look like for the tool? And finally, I'm gonna talk about finance recruiting pains. Really pains that all recruiters feel or all sourcers feel, and then how TalentBin aims to kind of answer those objections or those questions or those pains that you have with certain parts of recruiting. And then finally, I'm gonna jump into the tool and show you a couple of the new features and some of the new finance data that we have in the tool. So that will be definitely exciting. So let's dive in. All right, so where do we come from, right? Especially if you're new to TalentBin, maybe you haven't heard of us before. We are owned by Monster. Let's take a step further back and look at the recruiting landscape, because this is the recruiting landscape as we see it. We're recruiting via the internet over the past 20 years. Your Monster, Career Builder, Dice kind of dominate the market in the mid-90s, right? LinkedIn changes the game when they introduced this idea of passive candidate recruiting in 2003. So no longer is it just candidates submitting resumes or actively applying to jobs, but they have the ability to leave behind information on the internet about themselves, about their career, and then recruiters can kind of pick from that, right? And then where do we live today? Here we are in 2015, almost 2016, this explosion of data on the internet. Every single one of us is active on at least one of these different internet channels, right? And whether we really realize it or not, we leave behind a lot of clues about who we are as people, what we like to do, what we do for work, what we're interested in. So what TalentBin really aims to do is capture all of this data that's sitting out there and put it together and create a holistic view of any candidate, right? So we call these implicit resumes. They are not necessarily a resume that someone has prepared and sent out. It is a resume that we've built based on an aggregation of data from all over the internet, okay? Now, where did we start? We started in the software engineering market, right? Obviously, a huge demand there for software engineers, and they're hard to find. They're all employed. So that's where TalentBin really got its start. So we would, as you can see here, this is all one candidate, Cameron. Found him on Twitter. TalentBin found him on Facebook, Meetup, Quora, GitHub, and Stack Overflow. And what did we pull from all of those sites? Well, Ruby on Rails, Java, Ruby on Rails. This guy's a backend developer, right? We pulled those pieces of data out, we put them all together and made a profile for Cameron. Okay, so we're pretty confident this guy is Ruby on Rails developer, and we are now giving all of these bits and pieces, or what we call talent bits of information to the recruiter to consume. Okay, so we got really good at that and said, okay, well, where can we go next? So we went into healthcare and design. So if you take a look at Mary up here, she's a registered nurse. And where did we find data on her? Well, we went to sites like Healthgrades, right? We took data from the NPI database, and we started to filter out state data as well. So if Mary is a registered nurse in California, we actually consume that database of people. So we have a lot of access to doctors and nurses across the country. Okay, and then design. So there are certain design sites out there for graphic designers, UI, UX folks. Dribble, Corafloat, CarbonMade, Behance. Okay, so someone like Amit here, we found him on all these design sites, right? We pull out the fact that he's a user experience consultant, and then we actually can give you a snapshot into what Amit's portfolios might look like. So if you're on Amit's TalentBin profile, you would actually see the work that he had posted on these different sites. So pretty cool, right? But where are we going now? Why are you here today? You're here to learn about finance. So next we're going into the finance market. So where are we going next? And how are we going to do that? Well, there are certain sources that are specific to finance folks, right? Like the FINRA database. I'll talk more about what that means in a second. If you're a finance recruiter, you know what that means. Other places that you're more familiar with, Twitter, Facebook, maybe the patent database, right? And then these are state databases as well. So for these different people, right, we found information on these various different sources, what we call talent bits, right? And we're gonna pull them all together and make profiles. So as I just said, we make profiles out of them. All these things kind of go into the funnel, and out pops Sarah here, who's a broker at UBS Financial Services. Okay, we found her on FINRA, we found her on Facebook, we found her on Twitter, Meetup, etc. Probably even more than that. So we can give you a pretty comprehensive view of, or 360-degree view of what Sarah is up to, what she's good at, what she likes. Okay. Now, so how do we define finance, right? Finance is a very broad term. You have your back office accountants all the way up to your bankers, your CPAs, etc. So how are we defining that, and kind of where does our data come from, which will help you kind of figure out, well, are the finance professionals the right fit for what we're looking for? Okay, so as I mentioned, FINRA before, Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, right? So anyone who is taking a series exam, Series 6, Series 7, Series 63, 65, etc., right? That data we have access to. Now, some of you may know that's actually a public database, so you could go to FINRA and find information there, but what we're going to be able to do is give you thousands of these people in one search. We're going to give you the ability to email them right away, right? So we'll make that data a whole lot more consumable for you. Okay, so that data is all live in our site right now, and what's coming soon, and it's already trickling into the database, the CFA Institute, and then state CPA licensed databases, right? So if you're a registered accountant in California, we will have that data, right? We once again give you, the recruiter, the ability to search across that data. And also, obviously, chartered financial analysts, CFAs, we are crawling this source as well. So these two sources, like I said, they're trickling into our database. We're getting more and more data every week. We're adding about 2 state databases a week right now, and that will probably pick up speed as we move into late November and early December, okay? So, finance recruiting pains. Let's talk a little bit about, what types of pain you may feel as a finance recruiter, and really as a recruiter or sourcer, period. And then, what does the TalentBin finance tool really offer to help you with those things, right? So, number one, search and discovery. At the very basic level of sourcing, we always need to find new people, right? I need new candidates, or I have a lot of candidates. There's a lot of other sources out there, right? But I want more data on these people. I want to be able to find their social data. I want to be able to find, as we'll get to in a second, their contact data as well. Sometimes the tools that you currently have don't have all of those bits and pieces, so TalentBin can definitely help there. Contact information, as I just alluded to, we do a really great job at finding email addresses. We do have some phone numbers, but email address is going to be far more common because it is a passive recruiting tool. Time, probably the objection I hear about most. I know that all of you out there are extremely busy. You probably at this moment have 10 to 50 recs on your plate. You got to run Booleans for all those different things. You got to send messages to all those different people. That's a lot of time, and often you run out of it, right? So we often hear, I don't have time to run these long, long Boolean searches. I don't have time to follow up with my candidates. I don't have time to personalize my messages, right? We're recruiting in a world online now where because of LinkedIn, people do get a lot of career-centered messaging now. So it's getting harder and harder to hear back from those folks, right? So personalization becomes key, but that's very time-consuming. So how can we help you there? And then finally, what we just kind of touched on a little bit, response rates. With the emergence of all these, data aggregators and search tools out there, a lot of people do get messaging about jobs, right? So response rates go down no matter where you are. They're not probably getting any better, right? So how can we make those rates continue to go up instead of down? So let's dive into each of these more specifically. Okay, so first, search and discovery. How is TalentBin going to help me there? Because as I showed you before, we're crawling FINRA, we're going to crawl the CFA Institute, we're going to crawl the CPA state license databases. With all those additional sources, we get access to additional candidates, right? You would expect that, right? So LinkedIn's an amazing source of information. I would never tell you otherwise, right? But for something like Series 63 financial professional. They have 133,000 profiles. We have close to 700,000, right? And I don't need to go through each of these one by one, but you get the message, right? Because we are not relying on the candidate to upload their own information, either send a resume or fill out their LinkedIn profile, right? We as recruiters are pretty good at that stuff, but not all candidates are. Not all candidates have to do those things. So because we as TalentBin are crawling these additional sources, we obviously, have the advantage in that we can get a lot of people, okay? So I need more candidates, right? I need more humans. Here's some more examples, right? Once again, this finance professionals, series 55, 65, 3, we clearly are pretty strong in those markets, right? Okay, so that was I need to find more people, but how about the other objection we hear is that I have people, but I need more information on them, right? So let's look at an example. Okay, so here's Nicholas Stonington here, based in the LA area. He's a managing member of this firm, right? LinkedIn profile, it's okay, it's filled out, but there's not a lot of detail here. He says I'm an administrator of retirement plans, but doesn't talk a lot about what he's been doing. Doesn't mention anything about his background in series exams, things like that. But let's take a look at his TalentBin presence over here. So we found his LinkedIn, right? So we give you access to the link to that. But we also found his Facebook, right? So could be valuable for some fun interests or personal interests. And then we also found his FINRA profile, right? So because of that, we have a lot of information here. He's got a background in funds, securities, bonds, etc. There's a number listed here. So the main message here is not all LinkedIn profiles are full of awesome data, right? Sometimes we want to know more, and by pulling together these various sources, we can often help you fill in the gaps, give you that last bit of information you might need to establish a great connection with Nicholas. Okay, other things that we have on the TalentBin profile is entire history of his exam information, right? He's probably not going to want to type all of these different things on his profile. It's time consuming, why do I need to do that, right? TalentBin's going to give you all of that data right at your fingertips, okay? Now also, you can find more about someone's personal interests, right? So William here, he has pretty good job history here, but we also found his Twitter and his Meetup, and from that information, we were able to tell you that he's really into meditation, right? So if, let's say that William gets, a couple in-mails a week or emails even from recruiters, or he's kind of like tired of hearing the same old thing. But if you could say, oh, by the way, notice you're interested in meditation, what's your favorite type of meditation or favorite type of yoga or something like that, right? He's instantly going to know that recruiter took a little bit more time, and that recruiter really kind of wants to recruit William, okay? Their candidates are impressed by that. Okay, so that was the data side of it. Let's look at contact information. Everybody wants contact info. Where, as LinkedIn becomes more and more crowded, once again, great data source, but it's really hard to hear back from folks now, or it's getting harder and harder. We've seen that with software engineers, and now we're starting to see it in the finance world as well. So no one would argue with me that, I would rather have this person's email address, right? So what has TalentBin doing on that front? Okay, we have a very special team here. We call it email concierge. If you're a current customer, you know who they are. There are 3 ways that TalentBin finds contact information for somebody. Okay, so when we're crawling all of the different sources that we normally crawl, LinkedIn being one of them, right? If you were to find TJ and TJ lists his contact information on any of those profiles in a public profile, we will pull that and we will add it to their TalentBin. So obviously I'm pretty easy, I'm fairly open to talking to anybody, so I put it on my profile. TalentBin finds that information, puts it on my TalentBin, okay? How else are we finding data? Well, we proactively target certain groups of professionals, and we have our email team constantly mining for data for those people, right? So we're currently really focused on the finance group. We've targeted a pool of 100,000 candidates in key areas around the United States that have those kind of key positions we were talking about earlier. Like I said, CPAs, finance series exam professionals, CFAs, right? And we're finding about 5,000 email addresses a week, about 20,000 a month, obviously, if you do the math. That's pretty good, I would argue, right? So if you were to jump on board with the TalentBin for finance, the contact data is just going to grow super fast, okay? And then also, if you ever come across a profile in TalentBin that does not have an email address on it, what you will see is this little pop down here where you can request that email address. What that will do is send a message to our email concierge team and say, hey, I really want to find that email address for TJ Wynn. They will prioritize that profile, goes into a prioritized list, and they will work through that list constantly every day, and then within a couple days they'll let you know whether or not they found the email for that person. They'll send you an email, and then they'll also update that person's profile in TalentBin with an email address. Okay, so definitely gives you a leg up as a recruiter on contact data. Put our team to work for you, right? Well, I found 10 people that I would like to have their email address. Ask the team, with request email here, and we will take care of it while you're doing other things. Pretty sweet, right? Okay, time. Once again, like I said, the thing I hear probably the most. I don't have time to do these things. I don't have time to run these searches. I don't have time to follow up candidates, etc. So let's talk about each of those, right? I think really what TalentBin has spent our engineering resources on for the past year is to answer that main objection. I'm running out of time. I don't have time to do these things. Passive sourcing is time consuming, and I don't want to do it. So what we've done is we've now automated Boolean search, we've automated email personalization, right? And we've automated follow-up with candidates. So take all of those things that used to be a real pain in your workflow, and now imagine them automatic, right? Very minimal time spent by you in TalentBin. You can spend 1 minute running a search, whereas if you do it manually via Google or whatever, you're probably going to spend 30 plus minutes writing out long queries, copying and pasting them from your Word documents or whatever, and then going through candidates that are clearly a bad fit because the Boolean wasn't accurate enough. Okay. Automated email personalization. I'll show you this when we jump into the tool, but we are now going to be able to give you information about someone's skills and their interests right in the email template, so you can easily just click and send. Okay, to do that on your own would easily take, I'd say, 2 to 3 minutes per candidate. And if we're working with about 50 candidates for a given job, right, that's going to end up in 2+ hours a week. Automated follow-ups. This has been around in TalentBin for a little while now, but still, in my opinion, probably the best feature. Okay, following up with candidates is an absolute best practice, but it is the most time-consuming part of sourcing, in my opinion. Right, so if we automate that, we send second, third, fourth messages for you to your candidates, and it's a big time saver, at least 2 hours a week. And the real nice thing about it is oftentimes follow-up is just the ball that gets dropped, right? If I don't have time to follow up, I'm just not going to do it. So that you guarantee that this happens, and that kind of leads to another great advantage, which we'll talk about in just a second. Automated Booleans, this is just an example. I will show you this in the product, but I think this is really one of the most mind-blowing features that we've launched in the last 6 months. You can literally copy and paste your entire JD, long list of words, and TalentBin will pop out a nice Boolean string for you with a good set of candidates. Okay, we will look at that in the tool, so I won't spend too much time here. All right, and finally, response rate, right? So we started to talk about following up and the advantages to that from a time savings perspective, but what's the other real advantage to that would be response rate, right? So if you were to follow up a second time, a third time, a fourth time, much higher chance of hearing back, right? I've done a lot of research on this, and it turns out that if you're going to hear back from a candidate, they're going to write you back within 24 hours, 91% of the time, right? And I can actually show you the data if you're interested to see it. So what does that mean? Well, if we don't hear back in a day, we better be sending them another message, right? So TalentBin will take care of that for you. We call it our automated follow-up. Okay, this one is a screenshot from my bin. You can set how often you want them to go out, right? Every 3 days, every 5 days, every 7, whatever it is, every 1 if you want. I've had one recruiter do that before. And then what's the other feature we alluded to a few slides back, which is the automated personalization. So follow-up and personalization are definitely the two things that drive response rates higher. But once again, they're time-consuming. They're hard to do. It's a bit of an art form for some people. So we're trying to take that work away. So here we have an example. So, hey, Ignacio, I checked out. TalentBin autofills the message with I found your GitHub profile, and it autofills the message with certain skill sets that we found, right? So for Ignacio, a lot of front-end skills, JavaScript, CSS, right, HTML. We auto-insert those things into the message. And then the really cool part is we will insert a personal interest if you'd like as well. So here, Ignacio is interested in craft beer. So guess what? Ignacio gets a ton of messages from recruiters. I know for a fact because he's one of our developers, and I've talked to him about this. But if you asked him, he would tell you that none of the messages he gets look like this, and he would definitely be way more willing to at least write back and say no thanks if that was what he wanted to say, for something like this. So this is obviously a software candidate, but we can do the same thing for finance candidates, and I'll show you that in the tool in a second. All right, and then so we save time, but what is the other advantage, as I mentioned, to those follow-ups? Well, response rate boost, right? So here's an actual example of a campaign that I ran a couple months ago using our automated follow-up campaign. I wrote to 54 people, right, for a particular position here at TalentBin, and I heard back from 63% of them. So no matter how good you are at writing emails, if you can beat 63%, I'll send you a sweatshirt. That's pretty good response rate, and this is actually for a technical candidate, so that's even harder, right? 82% of the messages or the candidates that wrote back to my follow-ups, not my original email. So, and I really pride myself on my touch and my personalized approach in my emails, but I still heard more often back from the follow-ups than I did the first email. So, you're going to increase your response rates by 2 to 5 times, right? And once again, a vast majority, 4 out of 5 candidates write back to the follow-ups, not to the original message. So, persistence pays, right? Okay, let's jump into the tool, the part you've all been waiting for. Cool slides, so what? I want to see it in action. So I do have my TalentBin open. Let's see if they time me out here. They might have done that. Yep, so let's jump back into my bin. And let's look for a finance professional, right? So I'm already in my bin. I was playing around earlier, but I want to go ahead and clear this out, right? Now, as I mentioned, TalentBin will actually run the Boolean query for you. All you need is your job description. So let's do that. Let's have TalentBin create my search for me. So all I'm going to need to do is go to my job description, copy the information from it, right? I have one handy here, paste it in, and create my search. TalentBin will now ask me, where is it that you're searching for this person? Obviously, I'm going to go United States here. Let's look in New York City. Let's go 50 miles to start. We can always narrow that down later. Add this location to my search, and then TalentBin will go ahead and run the query for me. So look at what it did. It automatically knew to pull out of that job description anything with the word series, right? So it found series 6, it found series 7, series 63. If you go back and look at it more closely, it does say series 6 or series 7. So the nice thing about that is you can always change these things, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say series 6 or series 7, right? So because I know that that's the change that I want to make, and I can eliminate this term. I no longer need that, and now we can update, and that will probably bring us even more people, right? It jumped up to 1,400. Okay, but now there are probably other things that I might want to change here. So that was like a good starting point, and that's what that auto search is great for. It gives you a starting point. It takes some of that time away. But now I want to get really advanced with my search, so I'm going to add a few things. So all I do there is add field. What are some things you might care about with a finance professional? Well, maybe where they come from, where they've worked in the past. So TalentBin builds out a lot of searches or strings for you for especially things like companies, right? So maybe I want to look at people that came from investment firms, investment banks. You see this plus here, that means that TalentBin is automatically searching for a number of synonyms with that term. So when I search this, TalentBin has pre-made a list of the biggest investment banks, and it's going to search across those automatically for me. So once again, we're big time, time savers, pun intended, for your search. Okay, so investment banks, maybe commercial banks as well. Let's add that in there. And then, especially for our CPA recruiters, we do have tags built out like Big Four accounting firms, right? Maybe not the most relevant in this case, but I'll throw it in there just for fun. Now, this green check mark on the left means that I'm requiring this in my search. Usually, I'm requiring keywords and series exams and things like that, but my company searches, they're more nice to have. It's like icing on the cake. So you can actually toggle this over to a plus, which means, if they come from one of these companies, please just filter them to the top of my search. All right. What else might we want to add? Well, we also have school tags. So not always the most required thing in a search, but if they came from a top U.S. business school, that's once again nice to have, right? So we have tags built out with the top business schools listed, right? Your Stanfords, Berkeleys, Harvards, etc. are all listed out there with all of their different spellings, right? And there are like 17 different ways to write University of California. So we have all of those different variations in there. Once again, that's nice to have. That's icing on the cake for me. What else can you do? You can do things like a role search, right? So, maybe they have a title like financial advisor, right? Or broker, or, financial representative. There are obviously a million variations. But once again, if they have that title, I want to see them first. Okay, I absolutely need their series examinations, but if they have these things, I want to see them at the top of the list. Notice TalentBin automatically did this for us. They checked the box for only show me the candidates that already have an email address on their profile. As you can see, for this search specifically, there were 1,400 people. As I mentioned, we're finding 20,000 email addresses a month. So this number is easily going to double every couple of weeks. So that's a lot. I couldn't email 1,400 people in a day. Absolutely not. But next week there's going to be more people. So don't worry if that number to you seems low. What else might I want to change with this search? Well, you can actually filter by the different types of networks that someone is a part of. Right? So for example, I can say, hey TalentBin, show me the people that you found in the FINRA database with all of this information. And now I'm going to update my search string, see what I get, right? So over 1,000 people still, like I said, with email in the New York area, with all of these things as a part of the search. Okay, so now let's look through here. We see broker, investment advisor. Let's look at a certain candidate, right? Let's take a look at Michael here. So we're here on Michael's profile, right? We're at JP Morgan in his past, and if we look at his skill sets, right, we see Series 6, Series 63, Series 7, right? These things are all coming back from the FINRA database. If I look at this, it says, okay, this passed the Series 6 exam, and that is coming from FINRA. So, right, we found them on FINRA, LinkedIn. These are all live links. So if you ever want to open these things, you absolutely can. You can check them out. The nice thing about TalentBin, though, is that we will actually, make this information pretty easy to digest, right? The series exam, some of the different buzzwords in his background. And we'll show you, like I said, the exam information, some company information, right? All here on his profile. So with sourcing, one of the biggest art forms in sourcing is to be able to evaluate somebody pretty quick and go ahead and write them a message. So let's say we're going to do that. Okay, we're going to contact this person via email. If you prefer to do contact via Twitter, that's an option to you, or other social networks. But usually email tends to be the most successful. All right, so I want to go ahead and send him. I have a TalentBin template already prepared. Let me just pull it up here. Can't find my own template. Here it is. All right, so here's my finance first outreach personalized template. So notice what happened. I showed you this in the slide form, but I think it's way cooler in person, right? Hey, Michael, I checked out and it automatically, TalentBin inserted his FINRA profile into this subject line for me, right? Because remember, with TalentBin, you don't tell people, hey, I found your TalentBin profile. Rather, you say, I found you in the FINRA database, right? Because that says, oh, I did a bunch of homework on you. I'm a really good recruiter because I go above and beyond what others will do. Found your FINRA, notice your skills in security, right? So these automatically filtered in from his professional skills, okay? If you wanted to say something instead like, plus I noticed your Series 63 exam or something like that, you could instantly switch that into the message, okay? So pretty cool stuff. This is a feature we launched about a month ago, and people are loving it so far. And then you might see cartoons here and laugh a little bit. Well, that's actually coming from his personal interests. You can switch these things as well, or if you're uncomfortable with that, of course you can delete them. But I played hockey my whole life, so I'd rather talk to him about hockey. So I can instantly switch that in. And now what I've done is I've written a very personalized message in a matter of seconds, and then I have my template ready to go. I have links in this message. I have my signature, and then at the very bottom, you'll notice that we have the automated follow-up. Right, so I can put him on any of my campaigns I've pre-built, and we as the product specialist will help you build these. And now if I send this message to Michael, I'm going to send him a personalized email, and if he doesn't write me back, he's going to hear from me again in a couple days later, until he replies to me, right? So that automated follow-up is hugely valuable from a time-saving perspective, and then obviously from a response rate perspective as well. So anyways, that's kind of the bulk of what I wanted to show you in the tool, how to use our automated search, how to find a number of candidates and tweak your advanced search, how to quickly source through their information, figure out whether they're a fit, and then how to send them a really personalized email with some awesome automated follow-up on it. So let's head back over to the slides really quick. And what we will do now is actually just host a brief Q&A session. So I'll let my manager, Jeff, run that, so please feel free to jump in with your questions. I will do my best to field them, and don't worry if we don't get to you for some reason. You can always take the questions offline, email us, call us. We'd be happy to speak with you. So So yeah, like I said, I know we were speaking to a number of different groups of people on today's call for my current customers. I hope this was valuable, maybe a refresh on certain new features, or if you have finance recs on your plate, please call in, let us know. I'd be happy to work with you and set those up. If you're new to TalentBin and this is something you haven't seen before, I hope it was interesting. After the presentation, I will link you automatically to a demo request form. So if you would be interested in a sales demo with more in-depth information and information on competition and things like that, of course, you are welcome to do that. So let's jump into the Q&A. And once again, thank you so much. If you have to drop off, thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us, and feel free to write in or call in. Give us your feedback. Thank you so much. Have a great day.